Sophia. Merci à toute l'équipe de Creative Mornings de nous avoir invités. Merci de rendre ça possible. Quand j'étais kid, j'étais vraiment un Christ de nerd. Tu sais, à l'école, je faisais mes devoirs, je réussissais bien, ça allait bien. Puis à un moment donné, mes parents ils ont trouvé que c'était une bonne idée d'envoyer mon frère, qui était quelqu'un d'aussi nerd et renfermé chez les scouts. Puis quand j'ai appris ça, j'ai dit, ben moi aussi, je veux y aller. Fait que mes parents m'ont envoyé chez les scouts aussi pour pas que ce soit injuste que juste mon frère y aille. Puis les scouts, ça m'a déniaisé. Ça m'a donné des leçons de vie, qu'on peut faire des choses pour notre communauté. Ça m'a donné envie de prendre ma place. Ça m'a laissé la chance de prendre ma place. Ça m'a appris c'était quoi d'être le leadership. Puis au fil d'aventure de scout, là, genre vendre des calendriers, vendre du chocolat, faire du camping, faire du canot, faire du voilier, monter des expéditions. Au bout de 5 ans, ben, on se crée une communauté d'amis, puis on devient plus à l'aise. Puis là, on s'est dit, avec la gang de scouts, on était rendus dans les pionniers à l'époque, ceux qui connaissent ça, là, c'est l'âge à peu près, la puberté chiante. Là. Puis on s'est dit, on va faire un trip. On va se louer un chalet, puis on va aller manger de la fondue puis boire du vin dans un chalet. On a comme 16-17 ans. Et on s'en va dans la montagne d'Argent, dans le coin de Mont-Tremblant. Et on part en raquette, puis en ski de fond, là, l'hiver, puis on monte, puis on s'en va vers le chalet. Puis on marche, puis on marche, puis on marche. Puis la journée avance, puis il commence à faire noir. Puis à un moment donné, on se rend compte qu'on ne trouvera jamais le putain de chalet. Puis personne n'est parti avec une tente, des sleeping bags pour dormir dehors, etc. Il fait moins 15. On est en janvier, février. Il commence à faire noir. Puis ma bonne idée de louer un chalet pour aller manger de la fondue chinoise avec mes chums de scout, elle devient un peu moins bonne. Il y a un genre de petit sentiment de panique qui s'installe. Puis on ne sait pas si on va passer la nuit.
So 3 months ago, I found myself standing on the side of a mountain in the Chic-Chocs in Gaspésie, Quebec. I had gotten myself here with a group of friends, and it was mid-afternoon. To my left, we are passing through 3 serious avalanche zones. And to my right below me, it dropped off about 300 feet down into a steep, down to the tree line below. I put each of my skis 1 foot in front of the other, and it felt like a moonwalk. It was very, as we said, very technical. We couldn't make any mistakes, and I'm not a super athlete by any means. But 50 feet in front of me was somebody I have known for about 15 years, and about 50 feet behind me was somebody I had met about 2 weeks ago. I was nervous. This is a situation which you're meant to be nervous in, but I was really confident. We had taken the time to figure this out, to learn about safety. We had the right gear on us. We all had avalanche beacons and probes, all of our backpacks. I knew every single item that was in my backpack at that moment. We continued up, sat on a very, very steep mountainside, had a beautiful lunch, and all 10 of us had a great ride down 8 kilometers to the parking lot where we enjoyed a well-deserved, well-chosen by a friend of mine, a beer. If I think back 4 weeks before that, I was sitting in a bar on Crescent Street with 10 people I didn't know. 5 people I didn't know and 5 I did. This was our meeting to plan the trip that I'm talking about. And we discussed our lack of knowledge, what we knew, but we were also discussing one more thing, that 4 weeks before, 4 people had been swept away on Mont Albert, which is right across from where we were going to be. This had made the news, and some of you saw it. It was 4 skiers in Quebec City. We planned for it, we discussed it, but it gave me second thought. Should I make this commitment to these other people? Because if we did this, if we went on this adventure, I would have to have their backs, and they would have to have mine. And I didn't know some of these people. I was sitting with some people I had innate trust in, but some people I didn't. The thing that resonates with me of that night is that we made a commitment to each other around the table, verbally, that we would keep each other safe, learn the things we needed to learn, and be sure that we all got back to Montreal safely and back to our families. Thinking back to all the commitments I've made in my life, the ones that we want to talk to you here about today are the ones that you make to a group of people where you're going to go on an adventure and you might not know the outcome. Five years ago, Leica on a cold, slushy night in Montreal. Some of you have been there, I'm sure.
Who's been at Leica? Right?
10 people sitting around a table, much like I described. This time, though, this meeting was the result of a tweet that I made. I made a tweet simply to just to the community of Montreal saying, hey, where's the Creative Mornings in Montreal? A couple people responded, Mathieu Slinsky, Patrick Tanguay, and Francis Gosselin responded to it, and we decided, let's meet up at Leica and discuss it. I didn't know half the people that were going to be there. It was also the first time meeting this guy. So I sat across from him, and slowly I realized why he was there. He was there because he had some knowledge. I didn't know what he's talking about at the time, but he seemed to know a bit more about the process of what we were talking about, Creative Mornings. And truthfully, I had a desire to go to the event myself. That's really why I was there. And the main problem was there was none in Montreal.
Ce fameux soir-là où on s'est rencontrés, Steve et moi, au Leica pour la première fois, moi, je m'en allais à la SAT parce qu'il y avait une rediffusion live par vidéo d'un événement TED à ce moment-là. Je m'en allais passer une soirée à la SAT pour regarder des dudes expliquer pourquoi ils sont meilleurs que les autres sur la scène de TED. OK? Puis je marchais sur Saint-Laurent. Puis là, je me suis rappelé que mon partner de l'époque, Francis, il avait booké un meeting avec un dude, Steve, qui voulait partir les Creative Mornings. Pourquoi il avait booké ça? C'est parce que quelques mois avant, Francis et moi, on s'était rencontrés avec Christine Renaud, Ilias Benjeloun. Les deux sont devenus speakers de Creative Mornings pour essayer de partir un chapitre de Creative Mornings. Mais moi, je descends sur Saint-Laurent pour m'en aller au TED, mais je vais arrêter au Leica en chemin pour dire salut à Francis, puis la gang, puis Steve. Alors, je me suis accroché les pieds, puis il y a d'autres mondes qui ont commencé à arriver. Il y a Patrice qui passait par là, il nous a vus dans le Leica, il est rentré. On est comme parti d'une idée de on va aller expliquer à Steve ce qu'on a appris dans notre tentative échouée, big fuck up. On n'a pas réussi à partir un chapitre Creative Mornings. On va aller expliquer à Steve ce qu'on a appris dans cet échec-là. Puis après ça, moi, je vais aller à mon TED. Je suis jamais allé à mon TED. On s'est retrouvés à peu près une dizaine autour d'une table au fur et à mesure que le monde arrive au Leica. C'est de même que ça marche au Leica. Tu t'assois pour prendre un café, puis 12 heures plus tard, tu as bu 18 bières, puis il y a 12 personnes. Et dans le fond, plein de monde sont arrivés. Puis à la fin de ce meeting-là, ben, on avait un plan pour partir Creative Mornings Montréal. C'est ça qui est arrivé. Bien simple de même. Il y avait de la slush partout sur Saint-Laurent. Je suis bien content de ne pas être allé à ça, de voir des talks TED.
So, we're on this adventure. But the question right away that comes to mind is why Creative Mornings? Like, why did I even want to do this in Montreal? What was it that drew me to this style of event? I was not a person who went to conferences. I didn't organize them. I had no experience at all doing this. But the thing that drew me in was Creative Mornings founder Tina Roth-Eisenberg in New York City had the way she had done it spoke to me. She had created the events around her to connect with her peers in Brooklyn. They weren't too serious. They were free. They didn't revolve around business networking. They were for her to discuss creative ideas with her peers in a really casual environment. This is the event I wanted to go to. This is the one I saw originally that made me want to do it. She had created something real, and I quickly learned embedded strong values in it that she expected us to continue on with. They're the values that we still see here this morning. Interesting enough, later on I learned that she said, the magic of Creative Mornings is founded on non-transactional giving. And I felt that right away. Personally, I wanted to connect with my peers, make new friends, and I really wanted to attend at this point. I wanted to create an event that I wanted to attend. Funny, right? It sounds like something that's obvious, but I'm not sure if that's always the case. Like Louis-Felix said, though, he had the idea before me. I want to know more about what happened. Because I didn't on that night at Leica. I didn't know why it failed. I didn't even know he was involved until actually at the end of the night.
So when Steve mentioned that he tweeted at the world saying, "Where are Creative Mornings in Montreal?" He was not the first one to tweet this. The first one to tweet this that I became aware of was Christine Renaud. 6 months earlier, she had tweeted, "Why are there no Creative Mornings in Montreal?" And my partner Francis and I, we were building a business back then on the fact that we were creatives, that we were living in Montreal in a creative city, and that we had something to say about it. We responded to that. And for me, back then, there's like less than 30 Creative Mornings chapters. For me, it was impossible, unbearable, that there were Creative Mornings chapters in Ottawa, in Edmonton, and not in Montreal. We had people from Montreal, Moment Factory, Cirque du Soleil, Sidley, where we're talking about creating C2 Montreal. Like, what the fuck? Why were we not on the global stage? Were we not part of this global community of creatives that was being built on the impetus of Tina? Thank you, Tina. You are our goddess. Why were we not there? We had to be there. For me, it was impossible that we would not be there. And we tried. It didn't work. Steve said, "I want to do it." He tweeted. Mathieu Streliski saw that. Patrick Tanguay saw that. They tweeted at Francis. And we all got together. And we made it happen because it had to happen. Sometimes things, you feel that they just have to happen. And you know what? Just fucking do it.
So here's a secret. When we discussed this, when that meeting happened, none of us had been to Creative Mornings before. What did we have to do? We discussed it, and we had an idea. We'd watched the videos. We had seen the format. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to drive to Ottawa. So I drove to Ottawa for the next week, attended my first Creative Mornings, which was Harley Finkelstein, who's now the CFO of Shopify, speaking. And he was just starting up. It was a really good talk. But my fascination as I sat in the room was, what's the format? Like, what happened when I walked in? How does it feel? What kind of commitment have I made here? Like, I've said I wanted to start this, and what have I gotten myself into? Thankfully, though, as I looked around the room, I was enthused. I saw something that I was comfortable with, that I was extremely excited to go back to Montreal and share that this is what we were going to do. We're going to do it our own way, of course. Much better in Ottawa. There's no question about that.
Don't tell the people in Ottawa. They're very, very friendly. If you go to Ottawa, go to the Creative Mornings there. So basically, we're at Leica. We look at this, and starting a Creative Mornings chapter is pretty easy. You go to Creative Mornings website, there's a Start a Chapter section. And basically, you have to do two things. Fill an application form and send a video that presents your city and your team and why you want to do this. Pretty easy, isn't it? So we discussed this, like who do we want to invite as speakers, who's going to be our team, what are we going to do? Wait, did you say we have to make a video? That sounds very simple, but when you start thinking about it and getting ready to do it, it takes a bit of time. It takes a bit of thinking, like what are we going to say in that video? We're not just going to stand there and look pretty, try hard to look pretty. We're going to have something to say. And then we realized that the video part was a way for Creative Mornings to make sure that you could make videos. Because one of the conditions to have a chapter is to, yes, hold monthly events, but to film them, Allô 16-9, and to put the video online so we can create this massive database. Back then it was very, very small, but now there's like more than 3,000 talks online of creatives around the world talking about what drives them. And then we realized that the video was also a way to make sure, beyond like the technical capacity to make a video, because we had to say things on camera and send this to New York to get the chapter, it was a way of asking us to commit to this thing. It was putting our face, putting our ideas, putting our motivation to make this happen on video. It's like stronger than writing. It's like you have your face on this and you say, we want to bring this to Montreal because we think we're cool. You have to deliver once that's done. So we did this. We did the video with Pierre-Antoine Lafont-Simard, who's part of the team. We went around the city, did some beauty shots of Montreal, and we did some not-so-beauty shots of us saying why Montreal is such a creative city. We still have that video. I think we're going to share it on our social media. And we sent that to New York, but we were so convinced that we wanted to do this that we didn't just follow the rules like you send your application form, you send your job, your resume for a job description, and you wait for it, right? We didn't do that. We didn't do that. Every day we emailed New York, are we going to get the chapter? Are we going to get the chapter? When are you going to give us the chapter? And back then, there's not that many chapters. There's less than 50. We were the 50th chapter. Now there's almost 200. And we're always like, will we get the chapter? And at some point we said, you know what? We want to start this thing in Montreal, end of May. May 31st is going to be our first event. Give us the chapter. If you don't give us a chapter, we'll start our own event series. We'll call it something else, but we're going to do it. We like this asking us for a commitment through an application form, through a video. For us, it became a challenge. And we were up for a challenge. We'll take the challenge, and we'll ask you, New York, to give us the chapter quicker than the usual 3 months. We asked for it. And I think, Steve, I'm not sure, and this is filmed, it's going to be put online, it's so meta. It's going to be put online, and Tina's going to watch this. So Tina, I'm sorry if I say things that are wrong, but I think our enthusiasm convinced New York that they had to have an onboarding strategy for new chapters because we were so eager, and we were not the only ones to be eager. There's people around the world that are so eager to take Tina's vision and to make a chapter out of it, to bring people like you on this lawn this morning, it's beautiful, to create more Creative Mornings magic and less whatever's happening over there, bullshit, okay?
So we get to our first event. End of May, it's happening. New York has okayed us to do this. Was anybody here at the first event? Maybe about like a dozen people. So, yeah, thank you very much. Every single one. This is Notman House pre-renovations. It is rough, lots of energy. You know, the whole team is testing this out. We actually called it our beta event. It was still the first event, though. It didn't matter if it was beta or not. We had Vincent Ramsey Lemelin talking about backwards. It's just a funny topic to start our endeavors with, our adventure with. We're discussing backwards. It went off fine, though. I actually stood up on stage and hosted it. It was actually the last event that I stood on stage. First and last. I was the host for 2 years. I quickly learned that, and Louis-Felix doesn't know this, but at the time I had stage fright. I really did not like doing that. Thankfully, though, I had a team that was extremely talented. I had a Louis-Felix, I had a Francis Gosselin, who was to become such an excellent MC for us. And I realized that my commitment, I had made it could change shape. I could still help organize this, do all the things that I needed to do, but I didn't need to necessarily put myself completely out there. Something else I learned that day was that it can get really, really hot in Montreal in May. I brought my home fan out of my bedroom to put onto our speaker. It was my first lesson in Creative Mornings that always make sure the speaker's comfortable. Thank my wife for letting me take the fan. Our next event was, funny enough, at the SAT, the place that Louis-Felix was on his way to when he diverted to become part of the adventure. This was John Mike. The one thing I want to say about that first event, the second event with John Mike, it went off great. It was a lot larger than I imagined. But at the end of the event, he took a table. We put a table in the middle of the room for him, and he did a piece of artwork live for the audience using food, a dessert. It was fantastic. The crowd quickly mobbed around him, and he did a great job. I was standing off to the side, and at that point, I realized that this was not the event that I had planned. I had imagined a small room sitting around talking about design issues, some UX, some cool web stuff. And I'm watching John Mike spray chocolate at the audience. We continue planning, and by the third event, we're at the Planetarium Montreal. By this point, I know that I am on an adventure that is going well beyond whatever map had been shown to me or whatever discussion had been had. We have Claude Thierret, a fantastic speaker, very inspiring guy, talking about space and astrophysics. By this point, I know these events are going to go well beyond. This commitment I made is going to go well beyond what I have ever imagined. Montreal's community was reacting to this. By this point, we had come up to about 300 people wanting to come. We had space for about half of that. The pressure started to grow.
We're lucky we have these beautiful spaces now. We can have a lot more people. There's a lot of things that were unplanned. Steve said it. When we started this, we thought, well, maybe we'll get 45, 50 people in the room. We thought we'd do the first one at Leica. We quickly realized that Leica would be too small. So there's a lot of unplanned for. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of, what if it sucks? What if it's bad, right? And committing to something awesome, it requires, I think, accepting that you don't know what will happen all the time. And I'd like to hear you, Steve, about how does the vulnerability aspect of committing to a project. You start a project, you want to commit to it. You become vulnerable. You accept that you might fail, that you might walk into something, Creative Mornings ended up not being at all what you expected. How do you deal with that? How do you make a commitment knowing this? Knowing that you don't know?
The first thing is hard commitments like the ones that we were undertaking. They make you vulnerable, right? As soon as you make this hard commitment, especially with a group of people on an adventure, you become vulnerable to all these other things that are going to happen around you as you take this adventure together. Our first of events could have failed dramatically. I did feel at the end of Notman that they might have failed. As the popularity and the success of the event grew, the pressure that we placed on ourselves to make them great grew. And just to remind you all that Creative Mornings is a volunteer event. We were running with minimal sponsorship at the time, and we had, by the fourth event, about 400 people that wanted to attend the events. It got to be intense. The first year, I think I worked about 40 hours a week beyond my normal job on making sure that Creative Mornings continue to exist in Montreal. It got crazy. But it was so fun, and I saw the reward every single month that I kept on going. As the year progressed, I learned, as I dealt with the volunteers that made it all happen, the vulnerability that I felt in the failure meant I had to have empathy towards everyone else who was working with me on creating this. They all, like me, didn't want to fail, and they all could mess up, and we did. I messed up many, many times. Very small things, thankfully. I quickly learned that we had to forgive all those mistakes, especially in this kind of endeavor, that it couldn't be perfect. We had set a bar really, really high. I think anybody who's been to the events has seen that bar now. At the time, though, it seemed like it was here all the time. The lesson to me at that point was that I had to look at my own ego about these events and quickly let go and trust the team. Now, I'm standing up here. Many of you haven't seen me before. I was involved in the first 2 years of Creative Mornings, from day one till the 24th event. The commitments you make don't last forever. I personally believe, though, when you make commitments, you need to be honest and clear about the lifespan of that commitment. Try to fit those commitments into your life. Creative Mornings ended up being more of a commitment than I thought, but I was still able to fit it into my life. I have 2 children, a family, a full-time job, running a studio. I still fit it in, and I made it work. But it meant removing a lot of other things so I could make that commitment actually happen. I want to ask Louis-Felix, how do you live on? I passed the torch, right? Creative Mornings kept going. He passed the torch, Creative Mornings kept going. It got better and better, actually, if I think about it. How do you make commitments live on beyond yourself?
It's a great question. We've been talking about this. We live in a world with so much to do. Our attention spans are so short. I think it's definitely true for volunteer organizations, and I read one HBR article about managing volunteer organizations, and that totally changed the way that I saw Creative Mornings. Because people's commitment, you can't expect them to last forever. People have kids. People decide that they want to start doing great art and spend more time doing this and maybe less time organizing Creative Mornings event. Geneviève, thank you for leaving Creative Mornings and doing this beautiful art. But that HBR article I read about managing volunteer teams, I think this is how we should manage companies today. Because your employees, our coworkers, they won't commit for life. You know, my godfather, he started brooming, like he's using the broom in a shop, and he ended up being like vice president for North America or whatever. That's done. That time is gone. Our commitments are temporary, but oh so intense. They need to be intense, and we need to take that into account. So making commitments that last involves finding why we're doing this, the vision, communicating that, and making sure that people can not only pass the torch, pass the baton to just embody that vision, but that everyone who comes in and takes over on that marathon that is shared for their 2 minutes, for their 20 minutes, they know why they're doing this, but also they contribute to this thing with their own color and their own image. And I think Creative Mornings has taught me that it's not about, I was obsessed when I was a kid. If If I started a Lego model with my brother, we had to finish it. And my brother would never finish it. I would be like mad at him because we didn't finish it. We started a table hockey game, and like he would leave at the end of the second period. I'm like, dude, we need to play 3 periods. I was obsessed with finishing everything. But what we do today is eternally unfinished. And we cannot be the ones who will take it to the end because we will die before it ends. So we need to be able to find people who will take our own commitment and push it forward. And whatever we're building, they're going to give it their own shape, and it's going to become something else. So I think commitments that last is commitments that outlast us. We need to think about commitments in a way that is shared, that is shareable, and that is way beyond what we would ever expect to create alone. That leads me. When they asked us to speak, Steve and I had a good beer and a couple good breaths before we even started talking about the thing. And the way Steve taught me a lot about commitment. Like the way he started this Creative Mornings thing, like it happened because of him. We tried, we failed, he succeeded. He got us on board. But the way he talked to me about commitment is like it's a very personal thing. Commitment is a very personal thing. You look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I going to do this? But Steve taught me that even a very personal thing like commitments could become a group thing. And he was very instrumental in making this happen. And I'd like you to explain to me, and by the way, there's people there, so to us, how does committing such an individual, like a personal thing, how does it become something that you share as a group? How did you do this?
It's a very, very tough question to answer. This is one of the toughest questions about commitment that we can answer today, I think. In our case, talking about the Creative Mornings commitment, because I really do want to bring it back to something concrete. This personal commitment for me, we use the raw energy of those first couple events, those 3 first events, to all take our personal commitments and move them to a group commitment. The real lesson here in gelling around this was like we said earlier, just made it happen. We pushed ourselves to make it happen. There can be a lot of planning that goes on in our lives without actually making it happen. We committed to a date, we committed to an event, and we just got it done. This really helped the team move from individuals to a framework that would go on to last 5 years. It started there. Part of our discussions, we were talking about commitment. Louis-Felix brought up, he said this, it's hard to do great things as an individual. You need a group of people with talents, often. Some people are lucky and don't need that. But most of us do, I think. The opposite is that you won't be able to do a great thing as a group unless you have the commitment of everyone involved. In our case, half the team could have dropped off after the 3rd event, and we would have gone down in flames. The pressure was high, and we needed everyone's commitment at that point to make it work. As I got through the first year, I grew a ton. I learned about... I really went from being a very introverted manager type person to being somebody who could run these things and do this work. I grew exponentially, and I really didn't expect that, to be honest. I knew I'd have to learn some skills and, figure out the event stuff. But everything else I got from it was far, far, far more, I think, than we expected.
It's weird, we have these beers. We say, we're going to do the Creative Mornings. It's all talk, right? And then you go to an event, you do another event. Steve told you about the first 3 events, and they were just like, whoa. This is not what we expected. So you do something. You say, oh, we're going to do this. You start doing it. And one day, I'm sitting in l'église Saint-James. Tu sais, la vieille église qui avait comme des buildings en avant. Je sais pas qui a pensé à ça. Là. Ils ont comme construit des bureaux en avant, puis à un moment donné, on a décidé de les enlever, puis on a découvert qu'il y avait vraiment une façade à cette église-là. I was sitting in St. James Church, first row, on stage, Justin Kingsley talking about humility. That was very ironic. And, sorry, Justin. I love you. But I'm sitting there. There's this guy playing the organ, a playlist that we created is playing Pink Floyd on the organ, and there's like 500 people in the church. And we're sitting there. Who is there? Who is there at Justin Kingsley? Yeah, there's a bunch of people. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, Jesus! Not because I'm in church. Jesus Christ, we created this? There's like more than 500 people who came to this thing in a church to hear this dude talk about pretty personal and serious stuff for 20 minutes. I grew, I learned how to make an event, but I would never expect that this would happen. And then, a year later, we had Patsy, La Fée du Mainland, Patsy Van Roost. She was in Le Rialto. There's 400 people crying for 25 minutes as she was telling the stories of how we can make neighbors talk to each other. Holy guacamole, right? Then we're sitting on skateboards under the bridge, under the overpass, the Van Horn overpass. And Miss Me is on stage sharing stuff that is so personal and deep and powerful, and we're sitting there and we're just like, how can this, we could not have planned this. And we have maybe some credit that we met each other, but we have absolutely no credit that this happened. Like, we just put some energy without knowing where it would go, and this happened. And it's beautiful, wonderful, and very humbling. Because at some point, when you commit seriously to something with the openness that you don't know where it's going to end, it's going to take you somewhere, that it's going to bring you outside of your boundaries, and it's going to become so big. Montreal, I love you. You're so noisy. It's crazy. But it's going to become so big that you're going to have to let go. You're going to have to accept that things that you create become bigger than you. And that, for me, like that idea of commitment that makes you grow up to a point where it grows beyond you, and you have to accept that you're just a pawn of whatever you created. I think I have to ask you this question, Steve, because we need to cut short a little bit. But Steve is the guy who started this. He's the guy who still to this day is teaching me about being a little more realistic about what you do. And I want to ask you a very simple question. How do you get better at making commitments? How do you get better at committing to things and actually delivering? I have so much to learn.
I have a pretty short answer to this one. For me, getting better at commitments really means slowing down. It means slowing down and looking at all of the commitments you have, like I said before, with empathy and being sure that they fit into what you can possibly do. The empathy part I learned from Tina, who founded this. That's the very first thing that I got as I looked at all of her messages to us. Be conscious of your commitments and be aware of your choices. The thing that really made me improve my commitments over time with Creative Mornings and everything else in my life actually after that point was just to get myself in this feedback loop of empathy, looking at everyone else in the organization, all these volunteers that were doing this, all of the people even coming every morning, putting myself in their shoes and trying to understand why they were doing this. We've come back to this question a couple of times now. Why? Why did we do it? Why did we make this commitment? And as I sat and looked at all the other people's involvement, and try to understand why they had made it the choice too. That improved my own understanding of what the commitment meant and how far as what I could do personally in this.
So, we'll try to bring this to an end. We'll try to give you, summarize in 3 lessons, 3 tweets, tweetables, right? Where it all started. If we had to summarize what we said, because I was rambling, Steve was trying to keep a pace and a plan, and I was rambling. Sorry about that, Steve. 3 things. I'll start with the first one. About commitment. Whenever an idea comes up, capture the initial magic. The excitement of a new idea, of something coming to life. The first part of commitment is trying to capture that. Bring people into your idea, into the excitement, because that initial excitement in whatever endeavor, from business to love and everything in between, that initial excitement is what defines your project and what creates the real commitment. That's the first lesson. I'm going to stop there.
The lesson I can bring you today is one that Creative Mornings in New York showed me and we got to take part in. That is to take your adventure and wrap it in a story if you can. We got to write the Montreal chapter in the Creative Mornings book. Right? We got a chapter, that's what we applied for, and at the time I didn't realize how literal that could be. We had committed to writing the story with all of you, all the people who would come each month. And every month we got to hear the question, this excitement of, where's it going to be? Right? We change venues every single month. Who's going to be speaking? What's the topic? And who's going to be there with me? Tina opened the Creative Mornings book to all of us, to our team, and she did it in a heartful, thoughtful way that still lives on today.
It's quite amazing what Tina did. You're all here because this woman had this idea 10 years ago, and we're all here. Can we give a round of applause for Tina? She's going to see this on video. It's amazing. One idea, one person. She brought this all together, and we're all here. And I think that leads us to the third lesson. When we looked at everything we wanted to say, there's this third lesson. And that is something that Tina taught me even before I met her. But trust others. Trust others to take over your idea, take over your dream, and write their own part, write their own chapter. And it sounds antithetical, I don't know, to commitment. But committing is mostly about trusting others to do this. And when Steve passed on to me, he was very thoughtful, very open. And he said, Louis-Felix, I trust that you will take this to somewhere else. And I'd like to invite someone very special. When I decided a year and a half ago that I was going to pass this on to someone else, and we worked it as a team, we thought about it. She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. But we asked Boyana, as a team, we think you're the one who should run with it. She won't run it eternally, but we thought she could do a good run. And I'm really happy that we're passing this on and that we're only celebrating the first 5 years of Creative Mornings Montreal, and that we're only at the beginning of this global creative movement of almost 200 cities, and I hope we can create a community of millions of creatives around the world. And Boyana is the one leading this here today. Thank you for being here, Boyana.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. It's really amazing because, well, first of all, the trust. I think it's also not just me. It's really the whole team. So it's really, really it's actually quite amazing to be here today for the 5th year and have Steve with us, because you've been so much behind the scenes, and it's good that people know you a little more now, and recognize the work that you guys did to get us here. And I think you did put the bar so high from the beginning that we really feel, and I'm speaking for the team, but we really feel like we have something so precious in our hand. It really feels important and valuable. And and that's because of really the tone that was set, and people really, really care. So, yeah, that's all I want to say, but it's really an honor to, I'll let you have it.
The last word for me is that obviously it's so cliche, but if I could have done this and helped, and I do want to say that I did this with a big team. I don't take any credit that is not due to me at all. The team I had around me at the beginning was absolutely amazing, and I was only a small part of it. But I do think that if I can do this, that anyone here can, and anyone else should make that commitment to do great things in Montreal.
Guys, I know you have to go to work or maybe to C2. Luckily, we're just 5 minutes away. But we're going to read you our creative declaration in a few minutes. But just before, it'd be fun to take maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Anybody?
La fin de mon histoire. I was thinking about this all through the talk. Personne n'est mort. Ça aurait pu. Il faisait fret en crise. Puis on avait des sleeping bags de mon oncle là, de sous-sol. Un moment donné, c'était clair qu'on n'allait jamais trouver le putain de chalet qu'on avait loué à l'arrache. Puis je voyais la panique monter, exprimée peut-être plus clairement chez les femmes, mais vécue tout aussi profondément chez les hommes. Il y avait 2 gars qui étaient bien agiles en raquette et ski de fond. Je leur ai dit, allez en avant, marchez 1 demi-heure. On était dans le noir, là. Il faisait noir. L'hiver, il faisait frais. Marchez 1 demi-heure pour voir si vous trouvez le chalet. Si vous ne trouvez rien, revenez sur vos pas. Puis toute la gang qui restait, je leur ai tous donné chacun une tâche spécifique. Toi, tu vas chercher du bois. Toi, tu creuses un trou pour le feu. Toi, tu vas commencer à faire un muret. Tout le monde avait sa petite tâche, bien spécifique, qui allait durer 1 demi-heure, 45 minutes pour pas qu'il y ait de questions. Ça a l'air niaiseux à dire, mais ma première job dans Creative Mornings ce soir-là au Laika, j'ai ouvert un Google Doc, j'ai écrit, quand tout le monde disait « moi, je vais faire ça, moi, je vais faire ça », j'ai écrit le nom puis ce qu'il allait faire à côté. Puis j'ai juste fait ça, la liste des tâches de tout le monde. Keep people on their toes. They didn't have time to get anxious. We just had to do this thing. And when they asked me at the end, what's going to be your role in Creative Mornings? I'm like, I'm going to kick people's butt so they can do their job and we get this thing going. So that's how the story ends.
Une petite question?
Ah, il y a une question ici.
Oui.
It's about something that Steve said. It's just a couple of words, but they're burnt in me like incredible. He said, this is all about non-transactional giving. There's some of it, but there could be more. When he said that, I had visions of minimal stands, like a chair turned around with a little poster on it and somebody standing on the chair and saying, okay, 5-minute free chair massage, 5 of them today. Or star on the cheek, free, 5 of them today. Or what else? What else? I'm sure people have ideas right now. I'm sure people have ideas of other things that could be, because the meat of these meetings, the meat of these meetings is the community. So exciting the community with free stuff. You know what? I belong to 2 barter clubs. Well, now, today, I realize that they don't cut it. They don't cut it as much as free stuff. Free stuff is the way to go.
Well, it is about community, definitely. Merci. We're gonna wrap this up with our engagement. Maybe I'll switch to French. Before this idea, en fait, cet engagement-là vient, tout est à l'honneur, en fait, ici de Mathieu Arsenault. Je le pointe et on le regarde et on le fait une grande main d'applaudissement. Mathieu, il fait donc les communications à Creative Mornings depuis, 2 ans à peu près. Pendant longtemps, il a tenu la barre seul. Maintenant, il a Laurence et Maude avec lui dans l'équipe, mais toutes les newsletters que vous recevez, l'événement, la mise en ligne de l'événement sur creativemornings.com, sur Facebook, Instagram, je ne sais pas, vous écrivez un commentaire, vous avez une réponse sur Facebook. C'est tout Mathieu. Fait que vraiment, bénévole à temps plein. Ouais. Sinon, à part ça, dans sa vraie vie, Mathieu est aussi à l'INM, donc l'Institut du Nouveau Monde, qui encourage les gens, dans le fond, l'engagement citoyen, l'engagement. Et dans cet esprit-là, Mathieu, c'est lui qui a eu l'idée un peu de hey, ça va être le thème Commitment. On fête notre 5e anniversaire. Pourquoi on ne prend pas un engagement envers Montréal pour les 5 prochaines années? Genre, bravo. Nous, on est juste excités d'être arrivés à 5. Lui, il est comme, ben là, on va se rendre à 10. Puis, c'est sûr. Fait que bravo. Merci, Mathieu. C'est lui qui a, dans le fond, mené un peu toute la réflexion un peu qui nous a amené aussi à vous lire là, dans quelques instants cette déclaration-là. Donc, sans plus tarder, je vais vous lire un peu la petite intro, puis ensuite, je vais inviter mes collègues à venir sur la scène. Donc, en fait, cet engagement-là, c'est vraiment, on s'engage, nous, la communauté Creative Mornings. On va vous inviter à la signer. Le lien est sur notre Instagram, sur Facebook. Vous allez recevoir suite à l'événement même une infolette, là, mais vous invitant à la signer également, cette déclaration-là. On vous invite, vous, à vous engager également de la façon qui vous convient et qui vous inspire. Ça, c'est un peu la clé aussi. Puis je pense que vous l'avez vu avec deux personnes si complémentaires, mais si différentes en même temps. Chacun a sa façon à soi de s'engager, puis ça, il ne faut pas l'oublier. C'est pour ça, des fois, on se décourage, on se dit, il faut que je devienne un tel, mais non, il faut le faire à sa façon. Donc, à votre façon, on vous encourage à... Puis ça peut être juste dans l'esprit aussi que vous supportez cette initiative-là. Donc, on vous encourage à la signer. C'est pour, donc, encourager, si on veut, puis s'engager pour que Montréal reste audacieuse et inclusive. Et voilà. Et puis on croit vraiment qu'en fait, c'est les gens qui sont dans une communauté qui font en sorte que... C'est la communauté, justement, qui fait en sorte qu'on reste à l'affût, qu'on soit capable de faire face aux enjeux qu'on vit actuellement et qui nous attendent, puis on sait qu'ils sont très grands. Donc, dans cet esprit, quelques petits points. Donc, considérant que le chapitre de Creative Mornings Montréal fait partie d'un réseau de 186 villes dans le monde qui continue de grandir, considérant que tel que le stipule le manifeste de Creative Mornings, tout le monde est créatif et tout le monde est bienvenu. Considérant que Creative Mornings a organisé plus de 60 événements, aujourd'hui étant le 61e événement Creative Mornings Montréal, puis qu'on a une communauté de plus de 13 000 personnes. 13 000, c'est quand même énorme. Et considérant donc qu'à tous les mois, Creative Mornings se retrouve dans différents endroits de la ville, rassemble environ 200 personnes autour d'un café, d'un déjeuner pour célébrer la créativité locale. Considérant cela, j'invite donc mes collègues à lire les 5 engagements que l'on prend. Donc, je passe tout d'abord le micro à Myriam.
Allô. Donc, engagement numéro 1. Faire preuve de bienveillance envers soi et les autres en exprimant empathie, compassion et souci de l'autre au quotidien, dans ses paroles, ses actes et son attitude.
Okay, number 2, cultivate one's curiosity and ability to marvel with open-mindedness by awakening to others' point of view, taking on a fresh look at the world, even by rejecting the status quo and fighting back when necessary.
Numéro 3. Donner un sens à ses actions en alignant tous les aspects de sa vie avec ses valeurs et ses aspirations pour se réaliser et oser vivre librement.
Okay, number 4, create opportunities and help the spark in others shine by mobilizing them around projects that will allow them to grow.
S'engager activement dans la communauté pour qu'émergent des changements positifs et durables.
Donc, merci à Myriam, Nogol, Andréane, Steve et Marilyn et toute l'équipe, je vais toutes les nommer. Antonio, levez la main, là. Antonio, Olivia, Arnaud, Anaïs, coucou, Myriam, Steve, Nogol, Andréane, Marilyn, Lorena, Mathieu, Steve, Louis-Felix, Alexandre. Est-ce qu'il nous en reste? Ben, il y a Sarah aussi qui a été dans l'équipe pendant longtemps. Viens-t'en. Je t'embrasse. Qui manque? Benjamin, Diana. On vous embrasse. Donc, merci tout le monde.